Welcome to the Lone Lightworkers' first live online event, Loving Your Light. First and foremost, I want to welcome everyone to our Loving Your Light online event. Before we go any further, I just want everyone to know that I am very much embracing the fact that I'm trying something new. This is not really within my wheelhouse, or definitely not my comfort zone, as I feel more comfortable kind of behind the screen and recording podcasts. But I've been trying to get myself more used to videos and presenting myself on Facebook for you guys. So basically what I'm saying is this is our first time trying this. I expect that there will be some mistakes made. I'm still trying to familiarize myself with all of the online tools that are available. And while I had a great little team of helpers who experimented with me a bit over the weekend and about an hour ago, I'm still learning and I don't know it all. So with that, just know and please bear with me and be patient. This is a community. The Lone Lightworker is a community of individuals who want better for themselves, who want better for the world that we live in. And we're coming together as a community and hopefully forming strong connections and able to just share our experiences. I think so many of us have had such meaningful experiences and lessons learned that if we can share those and come together, I feel like we can make it so much further. So this is about community. This is about sticking together during difficult times, all times, but especially difficult times, and ensuring that we continue with forming those meaningful connections and supports. We want to open this up to anyone and everyone who could use some support, who could use some encouragement, some motivation, maybe just someone to listen and hear them. We're not saying or claiming to have all the answers, but what we do have is that community and that support group, and that's what we are here. So be thinking what I had wanted this or envisioned this to be initially was coming together for anyone and everyone that had some concerns or some challenges. Maybe individuals just needed to connect with somebody, whatever that is for you. I want that to occur here today. So be thinking of any challenges or struggles that you may have experienced or may be experiencing right now. Maybe it's a success story, maybe something that you've already kind of overcome and you would like to share with others. That's beautiful. So be thinking of those things. Please comment. Again, I know that there's an option and a feature where I can pull people on to video with me. I'm not quite sure how to do that from the computer just yet, and I don't want to mess things up, but we can certainly play around with that. At the same time, I don't want anyone to feel on the spot. So if you'd like to comment, I can certainly just go off of comments and we can kind of go back and forth that way. Individuals can certainly contribute whatever suggestions they might have, or any supportive words and encouraging words that they would like to. And in the meantime, while you guys are kind of thinking about that, while people are maybe coming into the event still, I'm just going to share a little bit more about myself and about the Lone Lightworker, and we'll kind of play it by ear. I had scheduled this from 6 to 7 p.m. At the same time, if we're sitting here and we feel like we've done and accomplished everything that we want to prior to that, then we're not going to just sit here and twiddle our thumbs. But let's just go ahead and get started and see where this takes us. It's an adventure for sure. So I wanted to talk a little bit just again about how the Lone Lightworker came to be. I had been really struggling for the last few years. I would say primarily the last 2 years. And through those struggles, and let me say there were struggles in so many ways, with my family and relationships, with work, with my health, you name it, I was experiencing it. And, through those experiences and that, I guess, journey that I was on, I recognized that things needed to change. Things needed to change first and foremost within me and within myself. And I recognized that I was changing, not for the better. I had become such a negative, bitter person. I was just so upset with so many things, and while some I was able to control, many were well outside of my control. And I was able to kind of finally make some peace with that. But I recognize that before I can ever even attempt to, change external factors, I need to first change and do some work within. One of the things, that has always been very near and dear to me is I've always known that I'm here to help people. I'm here to help, but I haven't always known how or in what way that was. So over these last couple years, going through everything that I was, it finally occurred to me about a year ago that maybe a podcast is something that I would like to do. But I wasn't sure where to start. I had no idea about podcasts or exactly what that would look like. And so I decided to start smaller and take a baby step by creating I just saw a question here and I got off track very easily. I thought I'd start by creating a community first of individuals who want to come, need some inspiration, need that motivation. And that's when I started the Lone Lightworker group. From there, I kind of wavered, and not really wavered, but I just kind of fiddle-farted around for that year, still just kind of working on myself and trying to make progress within. And so I ended up deciding just recently, in the past couple months, that it's time to move forward with the podcast. With COVID coming about, with George Floyd's death and just everything that has brought about, now was the time. So I decided no longer would I let that fear control me. I need to just go with it, because bottom line is, while I've been convincing myself, and these negative thoughts have, crept in telling me that no one's going to want to know or hear anything that I have to say. People will think that it's a dumb idea. Bottom line is, those things are not true, and it's not a dumb idea. There are people who are very interested in what I have to say, and so I just built up the nerve to do it. And lo and behold, as I did that and rolled out my first podcast episode, the support and the feedback I've received has just been amazing. And it's just confirmed for me that those negative thoughts, those were just stupid. And that's what they do. They creep their way in and they try to hold us back. And I was so proud of myself. And so I launched that. We've been trying to grow our Lone Lightworker community. We've got a website. We obviously started Instagram and Facebook groups. I also did the blog on my website. Now we've moved to YouTube, but we're still just growing and we're figuring things out as we go. It's about growth. It's about sharing and learning, growing. It's about recognizing all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the embarrassing situations. It's about all of that. No one is perfect. We have each come here and for a reason, and we're working on different lessons to be had, each one of us a little different. Melissa asked, how long would you say it took you to overcome negative thoughts and be more positive and nicer to yourself? You know, it definitely did not happen overnight, Melissa. And I'm not perfect. Trust me, those negative thoughts still try to creep in. They still try to take over the minute that they can. The difference is now, like, I'm recognizing them for what they are, and I'm challenging them. I know that my tendency is to go to doubting myself and to thinking, you know, assuming that I'm not good enough or that I'm not going to do well enough. Tonight, before I logged in here, I was so nervous, thinking I'm going to bomb, no one's going to attend, I'm going to, you know, trip all over my words. Bottom line is, who cares? So what if I do, right? It's a lesson. It's an experience. Like, that's all that life is experiences. And when we're failing to, or when we choose not to put ourselves out there and try something, well, then we're not experiencing. And that's not what this life is meant for. We're here to experience. We're here to take in so many beautiful things. We're here to learn. We're here to grow in a number of different ways. And so it takes some time, Melissa. It's going to take you some time. But I think as long as you're taking baby steps, I'm not sure if anyone has listened to the most recent episode of the Lone Lightworker podcast. Our episode this past Saturday was called Sparkle Like You Mean It. And it's all about the self-esteem and the fact that so many of us hold ourselves back. It's not even always about other people holding us back. It's us holding ourselves back. It's letting those self-doubting thoughts, that negative speak and self-talk, it's letting those things take over and letting them impact and affect what we're willing to try and what experiences we're ultimately gonna go after. So I think the big thing is recognizing, making a point to recognize if and when those negative thoughts are creeping in, and then sit down with yourself and kind of have a discussion. I know that sounds so goofy, and people, you know, some people who listen to my podcast are probably thinking, like, really, you're going to set yourself down? No, I absolutely mean it. Sit down and have a conversation with yourself. Do it in your head, do it out loud, whatever works for you, but call yourself out on your bullshit, for real. You know, I think that's the biggest first step, is recognizing if and when those things are occurring. You know, from there, once you recognize it, then you can start to take some additional steps in kind of rectifying it. But you've got to recognize it first and foremost. Then once you recognize it, now you got to try to turn that around. So if you've doubted yourself, doubted your potential or your ability, you know, you need to really be fair with yourself and be kind with yourself. And, you know, I guess make a more fair and positive, you know, statement. The example I used was my podcast. So obviously I was so afraid of being judged. I was afraid that, you know, I would put all this work and effort into it and then it would flop. But I needed to turn that thinking around and, you know, really ask myself, first and foremost, what was truly my goal, my end game? Was I trying to become famous and, you know, make loads of money? Well, no. You know, for me, it was about, I want to help people who are maybe where I once was. I want people to feel like they have someone, that they have a support, that they have someone they can talk to, someone who's not afraid to admit to the fact that I suck sometimes. You know, some of the things I do kind of sucks. Like, I think all of us could probably say that. So then I had to, you know, turn that around and say, all right, so that's not what my goal is. My goal is to help anyone. So a more fair and accurate statement would be something like, I do believe in myself, and I know that someone out there will want to hear my message and will be willing to allow me to share my experiences and my knowledge and that with them, if even just one person. And so that definitely helped. But it's a work in progress, and it's something that is going to take a lot of practice, a lot of reminding yourself at times, and overall just a lot of patience and forgiveness with yourself. I think if you go into it with an attitude of, I am not perfect, I'm not shooting for perfection, I'm, striving for progress, I want to be the best me that I can be for my sake and, for my family's sake, that type of thing, then I think that's all that matters, and you will absolutely make progress with that. One of the other recommendations I have, and that we touch on a little bit in that episode of the podcast, is, find yourself, number one, surround yourself with people who, demonstrate and exhibit the same things that you value and that you're, trying to learn or develop. It's so much easier for us to, accomplish something, or when we're surrounding ourselves with like-minded people. And so that's a really good thing. Be mindful of who and what you're spending your energy and time with and around, and maybe even try to identify someone who could be an accountability partner for you. I know there have been so many times I would have appreciated someone being willing, I guess, to kind of call me out on that bullshit in a loving way, knowing it was coming from a good space and a place of wanting to help me and wanting the best for me. I wish someone would have sat me down and said, this isn't you, look at how you're becoming, look at your behaviors, this is not the Jen that we know and love. If you can find someone who is willing to be that partner for you, and who knows, maybe you guys can kind of find a partnership. Maybe they're looking for an accountability partner on something too. But I think that always helps. Thank you for that, Melissa. That episode was really probably one of my favorites so far, and I've just had so many different people reach out to me to share just, how much that episode really did speak to them, and I couldn't ask for anything more than that. So I'm so grateful. Thank you for that. One of the things, kind of go back to my little plan here, I've just been waiting, if comments and that come in between. So, we've been talking about the Lone Lightworker being a community, and the podcast being about real people who make real mistakes, being perfectly imperfect. The Lone Lightworker, whether it's this event or our group and page or future events, this is a safe space. This is a space and a place where people can come and know we're not judging each other. We all recognize, hopefully, that, we all have flaws and imperfections. Melissa, I'm going to use you as an example. You may be really great and stellar at these areas, that I am not so stellar and great at, but I rock it in this way. We all have our strengths. We all have different skills and abilities, and we all, have different parts to play. And unfortunately, I think so many of us are just used to feeling like it's a competition, or we have to be as good or better than, the person next to us. And that's just so unfortunate, because that's not the case. I myself have fallen into that many a time. I still do, probably on a daily basis. I think the difference is I catch myself, a little bit sooner each and every time. And so that's all we can do is, try to recognize it and do better. next time, right? But this is about accepting one another and recognizing that we can all help each other. We can help each other in different ways, and it is a safe place to do so. You know, this motto I, come up with for the Lone Lightworker was changing the world one light at a time, one little light at a time. Because really, that's how I felt for such a long time. I'm just one little person. What could I possibly do in this massive world? How can I even really have an impact? But the bottom line is we can. One little light, that's all it takes. And it spreads like wildfire. And so that's been my hope. And I'm like watching it kind of unfold, which is amazing to watch, kind of sit back and see how, I started my Instagram page for the Lone Lightworker with like 20 people, and I'm well over 300, nearing, I think, 350, 400 people. And, within a few weeks time. And so that's amazing. It is spreading. And, it also gives me something to do. That's something I've really struggled with. I don't know if anyone else on here can relate with COVID and just everything that's brought about. We're spending a lot more time at home. We're definitely not out and about as much, either because, the places are closed now and it's not even an option, or, we're just trying to be safe and make sure that we're not putting ourselves out there and risking COVID or bringing it home to, our families and our loved ones. And so I needed something to do. I was going stir crazy at home. I would work all day long. Luckily, I have been so blessed that I'm able to work from home. I know so many people during this time have lost their jobs, or they've had to continue to go to work. Think about all of our frontline, workers, our paramedics and our nurses, and just all the healthcare professionals. Think about our grocery store, employees, and the fact that they didn't stop. They kept going, when many of us were able to kind of stay safe in the comforts of our home and not worry about that. But so while I was thankful, I was really bored. And anyone who deals with anxiety and depression knows that the more time you have on your hand can easily mean the more anxiety, just so many thoughts rushing through your head. You have too much time on your hands to think about it. And so I was like, I've got to do something different. I've got the time on my hands. Now is the time. We're going to move this forward, and we're just going to be brave. Jen, we are going to be brave, and we're going to risk, people judging us or making fun of us. So be it. I'm at a point now, I'm 42 years old. I have done that for far too long. I am done caring about what other people think, when it comes down to stuff like that, making fun of us or thinking we're not good enough. Most people don't think that way. That's kind of a lie we tell ourselves. And for anyone who does truly feel that way, I'm willing to take that gamble, and I'm not going to let them hold me back anymore. So, Christy, thank you so much. The daily positive messages, again, I just try to remain positive, and, I look for different sayings and images and, little memes and stuff out there that catch my eye, and whether it's something I myself have been struggling with or thinking about. So thank you. I'm glad. I've had a lot of feedback, that's something that's definitely welcomed by the Lone Lightworker community and individuals that are out there. And here's the thing, you guys. I don't think any of those messages, the inspirational messages and quotes that have been shared, whether through the podcast or whether through the memes that are, being forwarded or shared on social media, that's not new to you, right? Everyone knows these things. So it's not like I've imparted this, amazing knowledge that you're hearing for the first time. I was having a discussion a couple weeks ago with somebody who had been tuning into my podcast, and I hadn't talked to her in a few weeks. And so when we touched base, she was like, your messages in the podcast, they're great because, the episodes are pretty brief. They don't last forever, but they're just good reminders. She's like, I know this stuff in my head. I know that I should love myself and that I'm holding myself back, with those negative, the negative self-talk and the doubting thoughts, those types of things. But it's a good reminder because we all fall into it sometimes, right? And that's part of what community is, looking out for each other. It is that accountability partner. When you care about somebody and you want the best for somebody, you let them know you're better than this, you can do better than this, and you don't shame them for it. It's more about bringing it to their attention and then helping them to move forward from it. But that's really all I wanted to do, is just, I'm looking to lift people up, help them feel good about themselves, good enough that they're ready and willing and able to take a look at, where they want to grow and where they want to develop, So thank you so much for that, Christy. As I've touched on a little bit, through just the discussion we're already having, and for anyone who has tuned in to the podcast or the blog, I've touched a little bit on just some of my personal experiences and struggles, and I don't want to get too bogged down in what those are, but just to give individuals an idea, I feel like I've definitely been through some things, and so many of us have, right? But, with that, there's been addiction, there's been, health situations, there's been, negativity, anger, depression, anxiety, self-confidence or the lack of self-confidence, and low self-esteem. I've dealt with, lots of loss, and I've had just so many things happen. We've lost our home, and that for such a long time, I had so much shame about so many of those things. I was so embarrassed, for anyone to know that I myself had struggled with, an addiction. And again, it's been so freeing to get to a point where I truly believe, it's not just saying that, those things don't define me. Yes, I've learned lessons from them. I've become a better person because of those things. Luckily, I was able to, I guess, see the light and make changes before it was too late in some ways. And for that, I'm so thankful. But I refuse to carry shame about those things any longer. And if I can help anyone else to get through, any of those shameful feelings that they may be feeling themselves, well then hallelujah, so be it. Please reach out to me, let me know how I can help you. But that doesn't do anyone any good when you're just kind of sitting and marinating in it. If it's not moving you forward, then you might want to just scrap it all together, right? It should be helpful. So I use my personal experiences, I'm drawing on those things, and I'm sharing, my heart with each and every one of you guys. Again, in the hopes that, whether it helps you to feel comfortable talking with me or relating with me, or whether it speaks to you because you're going through it yourself, whatever it may be. I was trying to think just about, some of the different challenges to put out there today, depending on how vocal our, event was, and our audience. I don't really like calling it that, but I think that's what Facebook refers to it as. So some things that kind of struck me that I thought I'd ask each of you guys for, or to comment on, let me know, yes, no, maybe. Some of the different things that have come up, are, for me, a big one right now is like season of life challenges. So I'm in this like midlife. I've kind of joked about it, but I think there's probably a little bit of seriousness to it as well, that I'm at a different stage in my life. I have, one child who's still in elementary school, but I have one who's literally going to be a legal adult in a matter of days. And that's scary. That's scary. It's so sad to me. It's so exciting in other ways. But it's left me kind of, I guess, at times, like, I don't know where I fit in. I feel like I'm in this weird kind of chapter of my life, if you will. Does anyone else relate to that or not really? Some other things, because of course with those changes, as we're getting older, everyone else around us is getting older too. And so, many of us have experienced death, of loved ones in our lives. Many of us, as we get older, start to experience more health challenges as our age kind of catches up to us. And so there's so many different, things and aspects of that can affect us. And that can be difficult sometimes. I know I would love, to talk to somebody else who's kind of in that same space at times to know. I mean, I'll be real, there are times where I want to ask my sister-in-law, like, how did you survive this? With your kids going off and moving away, and can be so challenging, right? Some other topics. Oh, girl, Christy, sounds like you know what that's like. Melissa, you too? For sure. Yeah. Right? I know for me, it's like, although I've always been a bigger lady and, always struggled with my weight, there are some things that it's like, as I get older, that metabolism doesn't work quite as fast, and my legs don't look quite as, attractive or appealing as they once did. And so that in itself, takes some getting used to. What about parenting in a pandemic? We picked up and moved. Christy, so you guys just kind of picked up and moved from... I'd like to hear more about that, so maybe she's going to type some more in the comments. But what about parenting in this pandemic? Right? That has been another struggle. Like, I'll be real, it was hard at the beginning of, or I guess the end of the school year when COVID first started, because we still had 2 students. One was able to really kind of manage herself and, didn't need much help from us. Not that we could really give it to her probably anyhow, but it was tough, and then add to that there wasn't a lot of structure because it was just so last minute, and the school was just kind of reacting and responding to what was going on in the moment. Then you have the summer, but we're all confined to the home. Kids are bored, and that's can be very different from when we're bored, because of course kids don't want to pick up a book and read or, do some of the things. They want to have fun. They want to see their friends. And they need some of those connections too. So anyone have any struggles with that? Or can you relate to the parenting struggles? So we just started back in school, obviously, I think 2 weeks ago. This is starting the 3rd week. And although it's better, it seems that they've, taken some time over the summer to get a little more organized with the online approach. It's still getting used to for us, getting the kids and keeping them on schedule, making sure that, they're not getting offline and wanting to play the video games on their phone or staying up too late because they feel like it's kind of a vacation. Lots of struggles there, but mostly trying to keep them occupied and keep them, feeling good, and understanding too that this is scary for them. Sometimes we forget that the kids are, overhearing the news and hearing us discuss things. So that's a whole another factor, really helping our kids with the anxiety of this entire situation. I know with my little one, I honestly I guess I didn't think that she would be too upset about not going back in person right away. And so one day when she and I were headed to do our weekly grocery shopping, I just mentioned to her that, hey, where mommy and daddy aren't going to send you back to school right now. You know, even if the school does say they're going to go back in person, we're not going to send you back just yet. And she instantly just lost it, like broke down in tears, was so upset about it. And that broke my heart. You know, number one, I had totally misread that situation. I, did not think she was going to be that upset, and she was. But I hadn't really stopped to think, like, yes, I knew she missed her friends and missed the normal routine that comes along with school, but I didn't really recognize how much she truly had. And so that has definitely been something that we're trying to be more mindful of and, talk through with her, and really involve her as much as we can in some of the discussions and the decisions to be made. So that I guess at least in some ways, she feels involved and feels like she does have a say in as much as she can. So one of the next things I was going to bring up was our next topic, our next podcast episode for this upcoming Saturday. I was curious just kind of what your thoughts are on it. While I don't typically, I'm not a politically minded person. And I'll be honest, when politics and people, the left and the right side, start talking and getting ugly, I kind of tune out and, want to shut down, because that's just not how my mind works. That's not how I guess I feel, things should be. I feel like we're all humans, and, we could be doing a lot better with tolerance and just respecting the fact that people are going to disagree. So how do we agree to disagree? All too often, I'm sure you guys have seen it, left and right. It happens every day throughout the day on Facebook, where just, one person says something, and before you know it, you've got a full-on, like, war occurring between, different Facebook members, because people have some very strong beliefs and opinions on certain things. Take masks, for example, the fact that we're all having to wear a mask. And I'm not going to go into what I feel one way or the other, really, with that. But just look how people are just, have taken it to, this is a conspiracy, this is something our government, is planning, after this, it's going to be microchips and forced vaccinations, it's a number of things. But it can very easily and very quickly kind of turn ugly. And so our next episode is going to be on how do we, get to a place where we fully recognize, we understand, and we appreciate that just because we don't agree or see eye to eye on things does not mean that it, has to get to the point that it does. How do we move forward in a mutual respect, in a mutual understanding? How do we, not let it get to a point where it pisses us off to the point that it does? Any particular thoughts on that topic? No? What about the relationship woes? That's always a hot topic for so many people, whether it's, your marriage or a significant other, whether it's your mother, your daughter, parenting, your working relationships, so many different relationships and dynamics that exist out there. And it can be hard to navigate sometimes, right? What about managing stress? I know that's got to be a big one. How does everyone else here, how do you guys feel like you've been managing the stress from COVID and just everything going on? Anything in particular? I know I to be perfectly honest, I probably kind of waver myself. We all have good days and we have bad days. overall, I think I do pretty well with, we'll tackle it, we'll do what we need to do, and we'll move on from it, but it's not always that easy. And I get, part of it depends on what it's about. Part of it depends on the person who's experiencing it and kind of where you're at this point in life. Okay. So what about a lack of motivation? This has been another big one for me. Again, we have all this time here stuck at home, right? And trust me, there's plenty that I can see needs to be done and get done around the house. But some days, a lot of days, I'm not going to lie, a lot of days I can just not find the motivation to do, that cleanup project or the weeds that have been growing out back. Does anyone else relate to that? I would love to know what tips and, what you found to help you with those motivation crushers. The boredom and the loneliness comes along with that as well, right? So that's a big one. And I feel conflicted with it, I guess. I'm like, here are all these things that I can tell, and anyone who comes over would be able to tell you, you could do this, this, and that. How about that big pile of laundry over there? You could probably tackle that. And I'm sitting here bored, but I don't want to do the laundry. I want to do something more fun, right? So, any thoughts on that? Feel free to comment it. I'd love to hear what you have to say. So, I feel like we're kind of drawing to a close here, and that's good. Any other feedback you guys might have? What can we do for future online events? What type of supports, what type of connection or types of events, would you like to see from the Lone Lightworker? Anything come to mind that you'd like to share? No? Everyone's kind of quiet now. All right. Well, then I will not hound you guys. We're going to go ahead and we'll bring our first online event to a close. But I do want you guys to know that thank you for making this a not so scary experience for me. Thank you for being patient and forgiving with, just all my imperfections during this event. If you guys have any feedback that you feel comfortable sharing with me after here, send me a message, reach out to me however it works for you. But do know that I would love the feedback. I really do like to hear that and like to know kind of how I can make it work better for everyone. So with that, be sure that you're tuning in this Saturday for our all-new episode of the Lone Lightworker podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Overcast, Anchor. There are several. So take a look. Check us out. We're also now, I had posted and announced that we have added our podcast episodes to YouTube. They're not actual videos. I have the goal and would love to get to a point where I'm recording live for YouTube. So that's a goal that we have. But for right now, we just have the audios on there. But be sure to check it out. I know a lot of people spend a lot of time on YouTube and would be more likely to use that rather than, a podcast platform. And then don't forget